Hey moms, it's Katie here, and I am with one of our lovely members, Erin Call. Erin, introduce yourself.
You guys, I'm excited to be here. I am Erin Call, and I moved here actually from New York. And I've been here
Oh,
about.
awesome. So 3 years from New York to Arizona. Now, what part of New York are you from?
I'm from Western New York, so if you know anything about New York, I'm about 6 hours west of the city, near Niagara Falls, Buffalo, right, Great Lakes area.
Where they get lots of snow.
Lots of lake effects now.
Doesn't Buffalo get the most snow in the country or something like that?
It is like up there. It is one of the ones that, like, because of where we are with the lakes, like, not only is it cold, it blows and you get lots of snow, lots and lots of snow.
Why did you choose Arizona, Erin?
It chose us. No. It just fell into place that my husband's uncle had been trying to get him to come out here for a couple of years to help run one of their restaurants and open up other ones. And we kind of always just said no. I mean, we had the kids. At that time, had just started my business back home, and it just wasn't, timing wasn't right, fear was there, whatever. And so we just always said no. And then it came up again around the same time that my in-laws were actually moving out here. And so when it came up again, we were like, maybe we should take like another look at it. Like, let's see what the opportunity is. Let's see what's out there. And so we just started exploring it, and we're like, this would be a really great change for our family. And so that's kind of how it ran, really random, and very quickly just all fell into place.
Awesome. How long, once you made that decision, did it take you to move?
So that probably happened in March of 2015, like right when it was right after the holidays, February, March of 2015. Keith came out here in September, actually officially moved like the first week of September, and I stayed back and situated some things and came out the end of October 28th.
That's coming up. Your anniversary's coming up.
I know, 3 years. It went by super fast.
So once you made the decision to move, when did you start making those arrangements?
So that happened February, March. We put our house on the market April, and it sold in 5 days while we were in Mexico. Like, our realtor sold it while we were gone. We had someone come clean the house, stage it, left it. Nobody was living in it for the week that we were gone, and she sold it. So we didn't have to worry about with the kids, the cleaning and all the stuff. So that was really nice. So that sold super fast. And then there was just some other loose ends that we had to tie up. So in the meantime, in the transition, we had stayed with my dad, and then we moved out here. We came out in July, found a place, and then we moved out in the fall.
Nice. What special arrangements did you make? Because, I mean, that's a pretty far move. So, like, what did you do with your stuff? Did you sell most of your stuff? Like, kind of walk me through that.
Oh, that's a really good question. This is kind of fun to relive this. Okay. So when we sold our house, a lot of like big things we actually offered to let them keep. Like swing set, trampoline, like those type of things, like bigger things. They had kids. It's funny, I actually work with a girl that lives in my house now, which is super ironic.
Oh, cool.
And we didn't know each other at the time at all. We found each other. It's very weird. It's kind of funny. But we like let them keep a lot of that stuff. We gave like appliances to family members because they were brand new. So we're like, if you're going to use these, take these. We sold a lot of the big furniture. And then kind of got some new stuff as we got here. Mm-hmm. We brought, like, I would say 50-50. We brought some stuff, like we brought our patio set because we're like outdoor living, like we should bring that. But we had gotten rid of a lot of stuff. So we donate a lot of stuff. We sold a few things, just kind of picked and chose like what's important, what do we actually love and want to keep, and what do we really could totally replace tomorrow.
Which would probably be fun to replace too when you get out here, just kind of like a fresh start type thing.
Which was needed, yes, yeah.
Totally.
It was crazy to gut stuff too, because you don't realize until you like make a big move, like how much stuff you actually have that you don't even know that you have.
Totally.
And every time we move, that happens. We're like, oh my goodness, we didn't even know we had that. We don't need that. Like, what is that?
Like, we never unpacked that box from the last move.
That's how our garage is. It's like, oh, there's that. We should probably just we haven't opened that in 2 years.
Right. So what's the rule? If you haven't looked at it in 12 months, you probably don't need it.
I think it's a year, and the same thing kind of goes for your closet, except that's hard because it's like, but yes, that's the general rule of thumb, and I'm going that way with trying to get rid of stuff.
It's a constant struggle, whether or not you move, right?
So true.
So you had kids when you came over. So what type of preparations did you find you had to make in terms of childcare? Okay, what do I do with these kids when I get there type thing?
Yes, what do I do with these kids when I get? Well, so one thing that was kind of like we were moving into my husband's like company apartment that they had set up for us while we were waiting for like our place to be ready. So we were there till like November. I think it was November 11th. I remember dates. I'm really crazy like that. I think it was November 11th. So he was in that apartment for 2 months and I was there for like 2 weeks. And the thing is that was like borderline Chandler, Ahwatukee, and we were moving into Tukey. So the school district was actually different. So that was one of the things that the district was the same, I'm sorry, but the actual homeschool was different. So I didn't want the kids to have to switch schools. So I had to do that whole open enrollment thing that Arizona has, which New York didn't have. So I had to learn about all that and make all those calls and those things so that we could get the kids in open enrollment so they could stay in that school once we actually moved into our place. So there was that. We did look at daycares for my little guy who was 2.5. I work from home, but just so I had the option to put him in 1 or 2 days a week, we did like a flexible thing with the daycare so that I could do that. What else? We have my in-laws, but we're very used to not getting a ton of help from family because our family all still works. So it wasn't like a huge shift or anything. That was pretty much it. It was just, the schools. And then I figured, you know what, I'll meet moms, I'll meet people through the school, and I'll figure out like extracurricular activities from there because they had done like dance and gymnastics and karate and stuff back home. So I kind of just figured that all out once we were here. It was really just mainly like having the school that I felt comfortable with. And a lot of what we did was when we first were coming out here, we looked at areas to live in based on the schools. We looked Chandler, Ahwatukee because Kyrene, and then we looked in Scottsdale because some of the schools were rated really well. And so we learned that there were like pockets of Chandler that were a completely different school district that we didn't like. And then there was other pockets. So we just had to do a lot of like that research. So we came out twice before we moved out here to kind of do some scouring, looking, all that.
Awesome. Is there any particular resource that you remember that you liked in terms of looking up schools and comparing and all of that?
Oh my gosh, it's been a while. Google's my BFF.
For everything.
I don't remember specifically, I know that there's like a site that when I would Google would constantly pop up that would give you like the school ratings and stuff. So I utilized that. But then like when we were looking at like apartments and houses and stuff, we would just talk to people and ask and like see if what we were hearing was correlating with what it was saying online. And, once you found the name of the school, okay, let's research the school, let's set up a tour, like just all those things, piecing it together. I don't remember one specific resource, but it'd be super cool if there was, moving to Arizona,
like here's everything.
Here's it all.
Awesome. What's the biggest difference that you've discovered between your home state and Arizona?
Well, the weather is that's a given. We do a lot of like outdoor activities 9 months out of the year, probably 12 months out of the year, including the swimming season, versus constantly feeling like we are stuck inside. Also, like, and I don't know if this was a result of where I was at in my life then versus now, but I find myself finding a lot of things that I guess a lot of resources, like the mom group, for example, there's so many activities always going on, like networking groups, there's always so many things going on. Like I've just found it's such an active community, I guess. I didn't see that a ton back home. I mean, it was, but not to the extent that I find here. It might be the size, it might be I don't know, but that is very different for me. And I love that because there's always something that I can find to either do for my business, do for the kids, do to connect with people,
Totally agree. As you know, I'm from New Hampshire, and so a somewhat similar part of the country to what you're from. And I agree with you completely. I didn't really know what social groups were until moving here. So definitely a big difference. I'm with you on that. Is there a part of town that's most like your home state here, like in terms of people, sports teams, scenery, that kind of thing? Like if somebody were coming from New York and they got a little homesick, where could they go to just relate with others that are most like them?
I personally think where we live, and I mean, maybe I'm partial because I haven't moved out of here in the last 3 years, but so we live in Ahwatukee, and it's so similar to where we were back home. If any of you listening know Buffalo, there's this little island called Grand Island between the Niagara River and Canada. And so it's literally like you take a bridge to go home, you take a bridge to go to Canada, like this little shielded place, and that's where my husband grew up. So when we bought our house, that's where we bought our house. And I almost feel like Ahwatukee is kind of like that. It's like everything is there or close by, but it's like this little subsect of feeling like a small little community closer to a big city.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel very much like when I go to the kids' school, there's very much involvement like there was what I'm used to back home. Like everybody kind of knew everybody. That's how this little community feels to me. And I love that. There's so much within walking distance. Everything's within a few-minute drive, but yet it feels kind of pulled away. And that's how I felt back home living on Grand Island. And if I ever went back home, I would probably go back to the same place because I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of like little like family owned restaurants, which was very common where, we were on Grand Island because again, it was just this small little community. But yet again, you're close to all the bigger stuff, which I like. It's like the best of both worlds. And so I feel that that's very similar to kind of what I'm used to.
Totally agree with you on Ahwatukee because as you know, I live there too. And where I'm from back east, similar to where you are, I don't know how much you're surrounded in your town by mountains, but my entire town was surrounded by mountains. And so being in Ahwatukee and having the foothills kind of gives me that feel closer to home. You know what I mean?
Ours wasn't like that, but yeah. Just it almost in the sense that it's like this cul-de-sac in this big city where that was like this island in Buffalo's not like Phoenix, but like, in this bigger city. So yeah, I get what you're saying totally.
It's a good point. What do you wish you knew before you moved that you know now?
Oh, that's a tough one. What do I wish I knew? I don't know. I guess I don't know. That's really tough. I think part of like having moved out here was just the experience of like never really been anywhere other than, I mean, we've traveled, but I've never lived anywhere other than where we grew up. And so I was very open to like meeting new people, having new experiences. All of this stuff was kind of like part of the journey. So I don't know if there's anything specific that I wish I knew. I guess I wish that I had the ability or that we had had more time to explore other areas. I would really like, and we've done that a lot since we've moved here. I would have really liked to, I don't know, what would be really cool, and this is just flying off the top of my head, but if there was like some sort of like agency or some sort of, and there might be, and we just don't know about it, but where they could hook you up with a couple who's at like a similar place in their life who has kids and whatever, and they could almost like show you around like, okay, like we live in Gilbert, let's show you what's here, let's talk to you about the schools, like just feeling that connection before you come of like, okay, this is not the person at the house trying to get me to rent the house or buy the house. It's
right.
This area is, or this person with this motive. It's more just like someone that could relate to where you're at in your life, and you could kind of connect with them, and they could maybe take you around or whatever. I don't know. That's totally random, but I thought
Kind of like a mentor. I mean, really.
I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. I would totally like if someone came from New York and was like, "Show me around." I would like love to do that. So.
That's a really cool idea. And I have to tell you, I don't know if you experienced this, but coming from the area that we're from back east is very formal. It's a lot more formal than I find it is back here. It's like really laid back here. And so a funny thing that happened to me is I was in corporate when I came over before I started my own business. So it's like 15 years ago. And back east, you wear hose with your skirts and you wear closed-toe shoes. So it was middle of August when I moved. And what did I wear to work? I wore hose with my skirt and closed-toe shoes. And I will tell you, I was snickered at walking down the hallway so many times, not in a mean way, but these girlfriends that I had met at work were laughing. And I'm like, what is so funny? And they said, you don't wear hose in Arizona. It's way too hot for that.
120 right now, you're going to die. Yeah.
So that's something, if I were to be asked that question, it was a funny thing, I guess, at my expense, but something that I had no idea about was how formal we are back east and how laid back it is here. It's kind of cool.
I even noticed that with the teachers at school. Like, they wear, and I think it's perfectly fine, but they might wear jeans, and it doesn't have to be Friday to wear jeans, or they
Right.
wear, leggings or jeggings or something with a nice tunic. Like it's not like, oh, you have to dress up every day, and they wear slip-on shoes. Like it's, yeah, I actually, now that you say that, totally noticed that. Yes.
Pretty funny, huh?
So cool.
All right. Well, lastly, any advice that you'd like to offer for families looking to move from New York to Arizona? You know, kind of like what you just said. Like you kind of wish that you had a mentor or somebody just to tell you stuff. Is there anything that you think they should know?
Well, it's actually ironic. When I was back in New York, I went to the city for a seminar for work, and I met this lady whose husband, they were from New Jersey, and they were actually thinking about moving out here. And I think that his company was going to be up in Glendale or Buckeye or something. And so she was like looking at places, and I was kind of just guiding her to the little bit of knowledge that I have about Phoenix, which is not a ton yet. But yes, just being able to hook up with someone online, or find moms groups or find community groups online. They'll let you join if you're thinking about moving, and you can ask questions and connect with people, because I don't think that I don't think that I did that, if I remember correctly. I think I joined groups like your group, Katie, after we moved.
Hmm.
I wish that I would have possibly joined groups before, so I could ask questions and meet people that were in a similar space in their life who could guide me. And I think there's a learning curve. I do. I think like it's very different than what we're used to back in New York. Nothing bad. It's all been positive for us, but just being able to do your research. And that's one thing that I'll say is, like, if schools are important to you or commute time's important, commuting here is very, very different. I don't commute, but my husband does.
Hmm.
It's very, very different. And those are all things that if someone doesn't tell you that, you're not going to know unless you do your research. And, it's like if you're going one way during traffic, you'll be sitting there for 45 minutes, an hour. If you're going the other way at that time, you'll be fine. And people don't know that when they think of like, oh, where am I going to live? Where's my job? So there's really all these things to take into account. And it's just kind of cool if you can, connect with someone that can guide you.
Absolutely. Totally agree. All right, Erin. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. You have an awesome day.